Last time, we embraced the shadows and did it from behind for some quick road games. Today, we're traveling up north to a frozen tundra to embrace a class powered by corpses, disease, and the icy heart of Northrend itself. That's right, it's time to become the OG edgelords, Death Knights. Death Knights are ruthless juggernauts of death and destruction. They were mighty warriors, fallen in battle and brought back to life by the Lich King to serve the Scourge, before eventually breaking free of his control. They corrupt and manipulate life magic to sustain themselves, channel the frigid winds of Northrend to empower their strikes, or spread infectious disease while commanding the powers of necromancy. Much like demon hunters, Death Knights follow a similar path in the history of Warcraft. This current iteration originating in Warcraft 3 before becoming playable in World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King. With the release of March of the Lich King, Hearthstone brought that same sort of identity to its second added playable class. In Hearthstone, Death Knights use the Rune system, which limits what cards they can put in their deck while letting them specialize in the different playstyles for more powerful cards. Death Knights also have a secondary resource called corpses, which build up as minions die and can be used for extra effects later. So let's see if we can harness the power of undeath for a solid victory, or take a face-first trip into our ground now. This episode's especially exciting because I actually named a Death Knight in World of Warcraft, so I'm quite familiar with all of the little intricacies of Death Knight. So, let's get edgy with it. Normally, I'd show one mostly unedited game and then recap the other two. Unfortunately, the audio for all three games seems to have been claimed by the Scourge. So, recaps it is. For game number 1, we found ourselves in a mere match against a fellow edgelord. And on a finny battlefield too, at least for a Blood Death Knight, Castle Nathria. It was a scrappy match with both of us constantly trading minions and fighting for control of the board. As I quickly learned, Reborn can make those trades really annoying. Graveyard Shift kept putting 1/1 minions with Reborn onto the board, while multiple Possessifiers added 2 more 1/1s with Rush and Reborn each time, so they either helped clear out the board or stubbornly stuck around after we traded into them. My health dropped a little lower than I would have liked towards the end. A few useful Death Knight spells helped us stabilize and finally gain the upper hand. From there, we pushed the advantage, swung for lethal, and took game number 1. Game number 2 was another mirror match, although this time on a much more arcane-themed battlefield. And sadly, this one gave us our first recorded loss of the series. We started out strong, playing aggressively and getting in some early damage, but it didn't take long for our opponent to swing the axe right back in our direction. A few misplays definitely didn't help us either. Eventually, their undead army completely overwhelmed the board and sent us 6 feet under for our first defeat. Coming off our first loss, game number 3 finally switched things up by putting us against the Shaman. Unfortunately for them, they didn't seem quite as in tune with the elements as our opponent was with their undead army. We started applying pressure almost immediately, trading away anything they managed to put down while steadily filling our side of the board with increasingly dead things. They never really found a way to stop the swarm, and before long, our undead army was large enough to march straight through for lethal. 2 wins out of 3, not bad for our first day back among the living. Now for some first impressions. The class fantasy is absolutely on point. Death Knight genuinely feels like a harbinger of death and decay, slowly building an army using falling minions to fuel whatever comes next. The corpse mechanic especially helps sell that whole undead Scourge feeling. Even when one of your minions dies, it still feels like it's contributed to the army. Some of the spells and cards were also pretty neat. Anti-Magic Shell, for example, buffs your minions and prevents them from being targeted by spells or hero powers. It feels very Death Knight. Strengthen your undead wall and make it even more annoying to remove. The only thing that didn't really click with me though was the rune system. That could just be because I'm still working with a limited card pool, but right now it feels a little needlessly complicated. Having different combinations of blood, frost, and unholy runes to determine which card to put in a deck adds another layer to deck building that I'm not sure the class really needed. Maybe it'll make more sense once I actually have more cards and can start experimenting with actual deck builds. But based on this first experience, it felt more confusing than exciting. Overall though, Death Knight made a strong first impression. The class fantasy is excellent, the corpse mechanic fits perfectly, and commanding the powers of undeath was every bit as fun as I expected it to be. And with Death Knight unlocked, we've officially played every class. That means we only have 2 major episodes left in our apprentice journey. Checking out Arena and Tavern Brawl, and then finally starting our climb on the ranked ladder. But right now, let's finish things off with our customary pack opening. Let's see. Okay. Into the Emerald Dream. Start maximum mana by 5. Ooh. Secrets of Guru. Must be because I just bought this Emerald Dream pack. Into the Emerald Dream, Creature of Madness. Okay. Alright. Figured we'd start with the Emerald Dream pack to switch it up. So let's see. Nothing, blue, nothing. Druid Keeper, if you're holding a dragon, equip a 2/2 sword. That's neat. Aspect's Embrace. Restore 4 health, draw a card, and view your hero power. Ooh, okay. That's gotta be real handy. Charred Chameleon. That one was pretty handy in Imbue Druid. Trying to get the serpents out. Grim Harvest. Draw a card, summon a random dormant Dreadsteed. Ooh. Dread Soul Corruptor. Battle Cry and Death Rattle. Summon a random dormant Dreadsteed. Alright. Interesting enough. Alright, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. What do you like or dislike about Death Knight? I'm curious to see what you all think. Hopefully some that are much more experienced than me on the matter. I hope you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one.